How's it going, everyone? This is Daniel. In this video, we are going to be talking about Tesla stock and the overall stock market. We had a pretty great bullish week for the overall stock market and for Tesla. We're going to be talking about, are we going to have a continuation move for next week? We're going to cover all this important information in this video coming up. As you can see over here, we have Tesla stock that is sitting at $759.63. We're up 7.33% for the day. On yesterday's video, we were talking about the key price point level we were watching was around $750. That was a key resistance price point level that we're watching. We broke that price point level and we closed above it. So that is really good. That's a bullish sign that Tesla is definitely in an uptrend in the short term. When you look at the week performance for Tesla, it's at 15.94%. A few days ago, we were sitting below $650. Right now, we're sitting above $750 to close the week. So that is fantastic for Tesla going into next week. So when you compare Tesla to the overall market, as you can see, we're seeing a bullish sign for the overall stock market too. We're trending higher. We have Apple that's up 4%, Microsoft up more than 2%, Google up 4%, Amazon 3.6%, Tesla that performed relatively good and strong. As you can see, it's up 7.33%. So yesterday we talked about that there was going to be key inflation data coming out. That played a key role on the overall stock market going higher. As you can see, we have the stock market closing sharply higher as key inflation rate lower than expected. And we also getting some pretty positive headlines from Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs saying that signs that inflation is peaking could be positive for stocks. So that is definitely a bullish sign going into next week. So let's go over some of the price action that we saw with the overall stock market. Also with Tesla stock, what are some key price point levels that we need to be watching going into next week? So we are at one point, a few days ago, we were testing the lows around $380.54 for the S&P 500. As you can see over here, we are going higher and higher. We had a pretty solid consecutive green days for the last few days, and we are definitely testing the $415 price point level over here. So we had a very phenomenal sentiment change based off of the inflation data that we got. Later on, we're going to be watching a detailed breakdown of this inflation data that we got for the month of April. As you can see, the stock market is really enjoying and liking the positive sentiment shift that happened because of inflation just slowly going down a little bit for the month of April. We're seeing some bullish momentum and we got some buyers that are stepping in. But unfortunately, the volume is not really that convincing. But hey, we moved 2.45%. That is fantastic. And also, when you look at Tesla stock too, it's performing very, very well. It's up 7.33%. We bounced back from the lows of $620, the one that we set a few days ago, and we're actually going higher and higher. There has been some important headlines that we're going to be talking about later on, but Tesla stock definitely shook it off. Like, for example, we got a headline that Twitter investors are suing Elon Musk in spite of him potentially manipulating this stock. And SEC is definitely investigating that. We had this headline, but that really did not affect the Tesla stock. We also had a positive news that came out that analysts are still bullish on Tesla after visiting the California factory, and they see a very solid potential for Tesla to potentially bounce back 50% for the end of this year. So we're sitting at $759. So the price target that they set is around $1,200, above $1,200. So that is a 50% gain that you're seeing with their price target. So that is more positive news that came out for Tesla in the short term. So going into next week, let's look at exactly what to expect. Of course, the stock market is closed for Monday's Memorial Day. But after that, if the momentum continues, we might see Tesla stock getting closer to $800. If we close above, the $750 that we talked about on yesterday's video, it is a very, very great bullish sign for Tesla. We can stay above this price point level. We could potentially be pushing back to $800, which is going to be the key price point level to watch. And if we actually get a breakdown or pullback in the short term, because it seems like we're a little bit extended in the short term, so we could potentially see Tesla pulling back below 750, but that's not to worry. We have a very strong support at $700. So those are the key price point levels that we're watching as we go into next week. So also for the overall stock market, some key price point level to watch is $408.80. This could be a very good support area. And next week also we have Amazon stock split coming up too. So Amazon has been bouncing pretty good. And of course, their stocks was going to be taking place in June 3rd. We talked about that. And as you can see over here, we might see some rally happening in Amazon stock too. So definitely keep an eye on it. We bounced back from the lows that we made. We had a pretty strong support around $2,000. Right now, we're sitting at $2,300. So next week could be pretty action packed for Amazon stock and also for the NASDAQ in general. So now we're going to be watching a detailed breakdown of the April inflation data that we got. This is really, really important because the Fed is definitely looking at this exact data that we're going to be watching, going over, and they're going to be making decisions based off of that. So unfortunately, there's not going to be any big difference. They stated that they're going to be increasing interest rates by 50 basis points in June, July. So based off of this data, seems like what they're doing is working, and there's not going to be any kind of big differences. So that is positive news. But we're going to be watching a detailed breakdown of what this inflation data is. And I'm going to come back and we're just going to talk about exactly, what are some important news to watch out for next week for Tesla and the global stock market.
At the end of the day, Americans and market watchers alike just care about whether or not inflationary pressures are going to abate. And when you look at it again on a year-over-year basis on a headline number, it was indeed a slower pace of price increases in the month of April than in the month of March. And that's because it clocked in at 6.3%. Again, the street was actually estimating about 6.2%. So essentially in line. But again, a little bit of a slowdown from the 6.6% pace that we had seen in March. But look, that's still a positive number. It's still a relatively large number above where the Fed would like to see it at 2%. But I'm also looking at a number of other things inside the report because, again, we want to see signs of whether or not other types of price pressures are slowing. And one thing that I was watching was, in addition to just a headline number, you look at spending and also income, personal spending clocking in on a month-over-month basis at 0.9% between March and April, and then personal income at 0.4% on a month-over-month basis. But also take a look at the personal saving rate. Very interesting kind of bit of this report. It showed 4.4% in terms of saving as a percentage of disposable personal income in the month of April. By the way, that is the lowest rate of saving that we have seen since 2008. Now, on the surface, just because it's a low rate number doesn't necessarily mean people are saving less, because a lot of stimulus happened, right? So you can save a smaller percentage, but if you also had more income coming in, your total savings is going to be higher. But at the same time, you wonder if there's a psychological effect of people looking at how much they're saving, which is a lot smaller now than it was about a year ago, and saying, well, is this the time for me to perhaps stop consuming, stop spending so much?
Just one quick precision here. When we're talking about the savings rate for April, that was the percentage of income saved in that month, correct?
Correct.
So in other words, it also doesn't account for all of the money that people could have saved and not spent yet, right?
Exactly. Okay. But again, I think the point here is, it's a very salient point that the level of saving, which is different than the rate itself, is still extremely elevated. But you wonder if there's a psychological effect of people noticing, well, actually, my paycheck, which in many cases the wage gains are now not outpacing the amount of inflation that they're experiencing at the stores. They're now saying, well, maybe it's time for me to start cutting back, which will have at some point the effect of what the Fed's trying to do, which is try to tamp down that demand that's been driving a lot of price increases by America's producers.
Yeah, and there's the so-called wealth effect too, right? Where people are seeing their portfolios go down, and that's also affecting spending patterns. Now, PCE does not have the breakdown by stuff, right? In terms of
not like CPI does,
not like
the
CPI.
Other inflation report,
And we were talking in the break and about the implications for the Federal Reserve, and you said, even if it did have that breakdown, the Fed's really focused on this core big number. They're not as much focused on the individual components.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that we normally hear the Fed as a talking point make a distinction between headline PCE, which is their preferred measure of inflation, and then core PCE. Again, core strips out the volatile food and energy prices, so it clocked in at 4.9% on a year-over-year basis in the month of April. But you haven't heard the Fed make that distinction as of the last year or so, right? They're not saying, oh, well, if you read the core readings, it's actually lower than that. I mean, overall, the headline number and the real experience lived, kind of observations that Americans are making at the store, they're not making that distinction. It's eggs are going up by 10%. Right. So Jay Powell said literally a few weeks ago, well, look, everybody reads the inflation reports. We all know that. But he said, quote, truthfully, this is not a time for tremendously nuanced readings of inflation. That is a way to neutralize any sort of nuanced or very, very kind of myopic readings of these inflation reports. Either way you cut it or slice it, this April reading likely doesn't change the Federal Reserve stance, which is we're going to continue to raise interest rates.
So for next week, on Monday, we don't have the stock market open, but we have June 1st. We're going to be getting manufacturing price index. We have the U.S. global manufacturing PMI data is going to be coming out on Wednesday. Thursday, we have jobless claims data. We also have on Friday unemployment rate, non-farm payrolls, and etc. We're going to be getting those important data coming out next week. Also on Friday, June the 3rd, we get the Amazon stock split. So that's going to be really interesting to watch out for next week. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think is going to be happening for Tesla, Elon Musk, Twitter? Are we going to get any kind of updates during the weekend? Because things are definitely being shaken up a little bit. As you can see, we have Twitter investors that also sued Elon Musk. So it's going to be interesting to see what can happen within the next 3 days, what Elon Musk is going to be saying, what Elon Musk could potentially be saying about this Twitter deal and etc. So definitely keep an eye on that for that too. But if you have any questions, any comments, make sure you drop in the comments section below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, hit the like button. If you want free stock, check out the links in the description box below. But I'll catch you guys on another video. Have a wonderful day.